Good afternoon, gorgeous souls. Happy Friday. So, what an amazing week we've had, and all of this awareness that's been created from International Women's Day. It stirred up a lot of focus, it stirred up a lot of questions, and that's what we need. And recognizing that we've got so much to do, we've got so many layers that need to be broken down so that we can really create a completely radically different reality for ourselves, but also those women that are going to be walking in front of us, our next generation. And understanding that that's one thing I haven't really seen much about, really, was the recognition for the women that had walked before us, our mothers, our grandmothers, those that made sacrifices in their experience, in their lives, in their relationships, in relation to choices that perhaps they sacrificed to be a mother, to keep the family home, because there wasn't any other choice or options available. Now, one of the things I haven't really seen much talked about is the fact that we carry energetically the imprints and the miasms from our ancestors. And when we get incarnated, we come into a family matrix. It's like a grid, and we take on an overlay. And there are certain things that we have energetically as souls that are in alignment with the same experiences that our ancestral or family line has as well. So when we understand that, like, generational trauma gets passed down this way, epigenetically, we understand this from a science perspective. This includes things like beliefs. So beliefs around very strongly powerful, charged experiences, such as things around money, scarcity, survival, they will have been encoded into us on many different levels. So we have 4 different levels of belief, which is why some people that are digging into doing belief work are getting stuck, because they're trying to do it through the 5% of the conscious brain and not recognizing that it's actually held at soul level in the genes and DNA. It's also held from this lifetime and from other lifetimes. So the soul brings in other consciousness as well. So this means that these beliefs that were formed, they were formed off the back of an experience through that individual's lens of perspective at that time, at that event. And if we know ourselves, if we're in a situation where perhaps we felt like the victim, or we felt really overwhelmed, we will naturally have a defense mechanism that will often blame or push away or trying to create logic out of an experience. But actually, it's to try and limit the level of intensity that we're feeling at that time, and may not actually be the highest, most neutral truth of what happened. Now, we then, at that point, we store energetically that charge of energy. And that charge of energy kind of really is like something we get handed down to us through our DNA and our genes. And it can be almost to assist the next generation. But in many instances, it actually limits us. And what we're realizing is that in this timeline, this lifetime, the women that are being called to step up, those that are feeling the need to break the patterns within their family lines, not just by living a different way, because that is only one part of the step. What we must understand is that our illnesses will come through as miasms from the family line. We will have energetic, spiritual contracts and connections that come through the family line. Addiction comes through the family line as a form of spiritual bondage. But that does not need to be the case if you are choosing to break free from certain patterns yourself, not just by changing behaviors, but by going to root, looking at where did this pain, this unmet need, this longing, this fracturing of perspective come in and is now animating unconsciously because you hold it on some level of your being, whether that's energetically, on a cellular level, through the body. So when we're looking at old energies, if you can imagine, like the spirit shaman would be working with the ancestors and working with the different beings of light and different teams to be able to bring more information in around the experience and the limitations that you are having now, and how actually some of these perspectives, some of the anger you might feel, or some of the very strong emotional charges that you feel about certain things, including judgment and prejudice, often isn't even yours. And when I went in doing this deep work myself many, many years ago, I am half Scottish, half English, but I had beliefs that I hated the English and I hated the Scottish, because if you can imagine, those lineages have fought against each other. It was held on a cellular and a DNA level. So I went in to the experience from the went back in the timeline to find which ancestor had had an experience that had created that strong level of prejudice, that traumatic event, that miasm that was then unconsciously being held in my field, which then meant that because we are essentially as within, so without, we are creating our reality based on our beliefs and who we are. And we don't know fully who we are until we really look at what we're actually holding on to, that maybe is not actually our highest truth of what we deserve to be holding now, or actually who we desire to actually be in this lifetime. So I was holding ancestral belief programs that made no logical linear sense, that were animating, and I was able to test through things like kinesiology, a form of muscle testing, which is a way that you can check beliefs on different levels. So it's not just scribbling down in a journal and guessing, oh, you know, money is evil, or, you know, these things. We have to go deeper, because we don't generally get into the duality of polarized perspectives and viewpoints unless we've had something that has created a level of impact trauma that has made us split into black and white. And that doesn't need to be our experience. It's something that we have seen that's occurred through our lineages. So I want you to consider that we are a generation of women that are able to have financial independence. We can get jobs. We can live on our own. If we even go back to our mother's generation, in the UK, up until late 90s, she would not have been able to leave a domestic violence situation and be able to get a rental property as a single mother in the UK. If we go back to 1975, a woman could not get a credit card or a loan without the signature of a man. Can you see how the frustrations and the perhaps choices and the sacrifices that were made by our mothers, just around very simple things like that, not taking into account anything else, actually lives within us? So when we start to look at what's going on with our money story, why can't we get past a certain upper limit? Why is it we keep on having these cycles where we get some, you know, money in and then suddenly everything has to come out again? There's like a bill that comes in, everything breaks down, something happens. What about in the cycles of our relationships? I had an ancestor many generations back, I think it was like 8 generations back, and she had discovered her husband was cheating, and she went after the woman with an iron, and she burnt this woman in the face with the iron. So she was a powerful, very, very magical woman, and she used her tools to essentially, with her revenge and her anger, she took it out on that situation in that way. That karma, that event, that charge, I tracked through myself. Not that I would obviously act in any way like that, but I don't want to be carrying something that has a resonance of something like that, because I'm going to then start to attract experiences that will generate and activate something within me, which does not tie up to who I am now. But it was a way of her being like, for me to keep safe, men are all bad. And then what happens? You attract abusive men or cheating men or whatever the cycle is. We see this with divorces. We see this with the patterns. It's not just a conscious pattern of observing our environment as children or looking at what the grandparents did. This gets encoded. So the experiences of the ancestors, and including the benefits, the positive stuff, but also where they had their challenges, that lives on within us. So when we're looking at International Women's Day, we have this amazing opportunity, because I'm going to start taking this a level deeper on how we actually create collective change. There's something called collective consciousness. And this means that most of our sort of unconscious beliefs and patternings and education and societal norms, it holds strong resonant, they're called morphogenic fields of consciousness. Rupert Sheldrake, if you're not aware of that scientist that coined that term, and now quantum physics is understanding that everything is interrelated and we have different fields of beliefs and consciousness, etc. So understanding that the collective belief is probably that we are literally just this one person that comes into this experience, this life, and we just all have these really different challenges, and there's nothing we can do about it. And we might get to a point where actually we need to talk to somebody, because quite frankly, like, it's not just bad luck. This has been like, I've lived a good life. I've been a good person. I've looked after my health. I've, educated myself. I've done the stuff that I felt was, in line with being a good person according to society, but nothing seems to be really working out how I desire it to. And we maybe go and get some therapy. And we might start trying, journaling or focusing on positive things, but we still can't seem to lift that feeling. We know there's something else, there's something deeper. And then we begin to look at the cycles that perhaps we've maybe seen our families in. So we begin to be aware of things like the family constellation that you've come into, that network of souls and individuals and all their own animations of beliefs. And it's actually quite hard, even if you physically disconnect and emancipate yourself from that lineage, you are still energetically connected to them. You are still imprinted by your grandmother and your mother's states, emotional beliefs, whatever was going on for them, whilst your grandmother was pregnant with your mother and you were an egg in your mother's womb, or in her fallopian tubes, and her ovaries even. Brain's not working this morning. And then you were obviously a baby within your mother whilst you were in the womb, and you will have been taking on whatever her experience was of the world at that time is an imprint. So even if you just look 2 generations back, there's a lot that probably happened. That would have maybe been from the Second World War or maybe into the First World War. There were, many different challenges that our ancestors were facing. Now, when it comes to women being independent and that being safe, and perhaps that is not something that our female lineage have maybe had. They might not have had financial freedom. They might not have had the level of choice. So on some level, there might also be a lot of fear about that. A lot of fear about actually maybe bad things happen. If you were a wealthy woman during the witchcraft trials, and I'm actually going to be sharing a bit about this because this is deeply connected into collective pieces that are coming up at the moment, especially for women being more visible, those that are also wanting to show up authentically, unapologetically, and really reclaim all parts of themselves, including their intuition. One of the things that we hold, and this can also be through our ancestral line, and certainly was for me, was the impact of the witchcraft trials, that persecution for literally being connected to nature, to source, to yourself, the demonization, the politics that was to actually separate 2 religions and bringing it in. If you were a wealthy woman, your neighbor could have reported you to the church. You would have literally stuck, somebody's name in a box and they would have gone after you. You would have been brought in and put up as against trial. And you would have had to have paid for your own stake, for your own trial. They would have taken a load of money from you. It was big business. Many people don't realize that there was a lot of people benefiting out of, taking down the powerful people, women in communities. And yeah, it was a power dynamic as much as it was suppression of really our connection to nature, our power, and everything else. So when we look at collectives, and we're now looking at women that have the opportunity to get out there and actually challenge the norm, that witchcraft wound, or that witch wound, the persecution wound, can play out, just as the self-sacrifice wound is actually something that as women collectively are being called to really look at. It stops with us. It stops when we stop taking on the old archetype role of the mother that was defined by patriarchy. It stops when we reclaim our sisterhood connections. It happens when we stop fighting and competing against other women. And we realize that actually the wisdom and the alliance and the power of the divine feminine, there's a reason why they wanted that separated. If we're fighting against each other and we don't trust each other, we're never really going to come cohesively together and activate that divine feminine energy, which is creation energy, the most potent, powerful energy on this planet. And if we are in alignment with who we are, and we've let go of the scarcity and the shoulds and the conditioning and the bullshit that we've taken on, and living in fear and making our choices from fear, not our inner truth, we collectively shift everything in the collective morphogenic fields, meaning that the work that you do for yourself then influences 650 other people in your collective morphogenic field, which will be the people you work with, your family, etc., etc. And then that creates a ripple effect globally that then starts to have other people connect into that field of consciousness and start to then go through their own process. When we see others stand up and do something that we didn't think was possible, it inspires us, but it also confirms that something is possible. It's not a miracle. It's not out of the ordinary. It means that it's been done, therefore it's possible for me, and I just need to find my way. So understanding that there is multi-levels of work that can really radically shift collectively what is happening in our 3D consciousness, and what you do counts, and how you show up counts, and how you really forge where things have been broken down amongst the feminine, whether it's also in the community, whether it's in the family lines, whether it's in how we reclaim our bodies, our voices. When we do this work and we show others how to do this work, and we make this normal, just as therapy is now normal, we will radically shift the power dynamics on this planet. And we don't need to go up and fight the old patriarchal system, which will just push back on us. So there's many levels in how we do this, but none of us can avoid the work that we are being called to do for ourselves. So as this is part of my purpose, part of my divine assignment, and this is what I've been working with thousands of women for the past 6 years, and from all levels of experience, there is literally no shame. All of us have lived out of alignment with our truth. All of us have given our power away. All of us have also been the persecutor. All of us have also been the victim. When we clean up these energies who are not in truth who we are as souls, that's not our true essence. The experiences of you being the victim is not your true essence of who you are as a soul. When we alchemize that experience, that story, that miasm, firstly, we don't imprint it on our children so they go off and manifest it. We start to then come into wholeness. And when we start to make choices from a place of wholeness, our outer reality starts to respond back in a more balanced way, meaning we're not getting all of this duality, distortion, the distraction that we have at this time. We get to heal 10 generations back. We get to heal your own soul, which impacts the multidimensional version of you. We get to then clear at the monadic level, the oversoul, and back to source. I work on a very, very multidimensional way because that is my gift. And in doing so, you stop the looping patterns. You can get to root. And when you want to move forwards, what you don't realize is that you cannot move forwards and elevate out of your experience and expansion until you assist those souls in the family matrix that you actually incarnated in with. They might not even be embodied at this time. They might be on the astral plane. They might not even be alive at this time. It doesn't matter. You're still connected into them. When you allow them the gift of freeing the stuff that they could not alchemize themselves, all of you get to elevate. That means that you do not feel this pull that I can't move forwards. I can't step out of this dynamic, or I cannot release myself from these, what feels like a cage, so that you can redefine the script of your own life. So you can start to remove some of these energetic pieces that have actually been keeping you thinking there's something wrong with you. And that's why things are not able to create or land as you want. But actually, there's a lot of baggage that you are influenced by that is holding you back. So this work does not need to take lifetimes. And quite frankly, we haven't got lifetimes to do this kind of work. This is work that you could do intensely on different woundings. In particular, the core wounding is coming up for women, massive around inner child wounding. It's one of the big things that I see when I'm working with, experts, professionals, CEOs. I've got physicists, lawyers, coaches, all sorts of women from all different industries. None of us escapes the core wounding. None of us escapes the personality formation and the defense mechanisms that hide a wounded aspect of self behind the scenes that are running the show. It shows up in your relationships. It shows up in your money. It shows up in not being able to get into flow. So all of these things are coming up at this time because they're ready to be healed and integrated back in. It's not about rejecting them out. And this is soul work. This isn't just about talking to an inner child aspect. You've got to remember, if there is trauma, there will be other beings and consciousness that are involved in needing to be removed before that part can be integrated back in. When you hold more of yourself, your light, your wholeness, everything shifts for you. Your vibrancy, your magneticness, magnetism, even better word. You start to be able to radiate. You feel more grounded in your body. You know when things are aligned for you because it feels good in your body and for yourself, and you're less distracted by everybody else's desires or projections on where they think you should be. And for women, this is a reclamation, this is a sovereignty, this is emancipation of all the stories that have gone before you, all the experiences that are, whether they think that somebody is out of fear trying to protect you on some level, because your ancestors are energetically influencing every part of your life, and they can affect fertility and all sorts of things, and they do. Let's heal those things so that you get your free will back to make the choices you desire, to live life on the terms that you desire, understanding your power to actually co-create with your soul, with source, to understand that these pieces are not you. They are expressions or experiences, but when we alchemize and integrate the lessons that were there and then get to clear the lines, you actually don't feel the pressure or the suppression anymore, or that feeling of no matter how much I try, it just doesn't work. And I know that that's coming up for people, and it's showing up. The feminine awakening is showing up through burnout. If you don't take any notice of your own needs, nobody else is going to come in and do it. Nobody else is going to say, you know, take a break after that project finishes, you know, integrate things. No, you have to desire and command that yourself. And if you can't get it in that workplace, then it's the invitation to open up another timeline to find different opportunities. And they are there. But it's understanding that that comes from your choice, your inner alignment to know that you are always able to create something else, because your true state is not scarcity. But when we're holding a lot of stuff around stepping out of comfort zones and stepping into our brightness, our bigness, it will bring up imposter syndrome. It will bring up all sorts of pieces, because these are defense mechanisms and they can come from many different places and they will play out for you. Think about the person that loses their voice just before they're about to do some big public speaking event. All of that stuff can be alchemized very quickly. So what I'm offering, and this is a gift in alignment with International Women's Day, is tonight at 7 o'clock London GMT time, I'm going to be running a group healing session. So we're going to be connecting in our ceremony session container with your ancestors to get the information through of what it is that you are carrying at this time in relation to servitude and self-sacrifice that is actually their energy, their trauma, their pieces. And then we're going to clear it for all of you, so that you do not need to keep on feeling that you are in this hamster wheel cycle of not being able to break free from what you can feel is now that getting very restrictive, but you just cannot put your finger on what it is I actually need. And understanding with compassion, with love, this is healing to their soul. Yeah, this animates through us as women. It gives us a deeper level of love for ourselves, a deeper level of compassion for those that went before us and had even less choice. The times that they were in where they will, you know, maybe experienced high level of abuse because that was just, you know, what men did to women at that time. Recognize this can be holding you back and your life force back in so many different ways. So we get to work in a very powerful, potent vortex of energy with many different teams that are specialists in working with this, and we get to heal this within ourselves. And this is the gift, the ripple effect gift that then gets to impact you, your family line, and all those that are surrounding you in your life. And this work is very, very powerful. Expect to have new doors opening for you. I've had people get pregnant after doing this kind of work. I've had people have new job offers. Money comes in that's been owed for years. All of this kind of stuff. So recognize that everything starts with energy, and some of the stuff that you've inherited, it has a story, it has a reason, but it's not something as a baggage perspective that you need to be carrying on with you. So I'm super excited for those that will be joining, and sending you lots of love. And there is a link that I've also popped on here that you need to sign up in advance. It's not going to be live streamed on here. You need to sign up, and then you get the Zoom link, and then you can join at 7. Make sure you're in the group about 5 minutes before so that I can open the group, and I will not be taking people in that are late because we have to make sure the space is closed and it's respectful for everybody. So yes, this is a time of feminine awakening. This is a time of freeing ourselves by reconnecting to ourselves. This is the inner alchemy. And when we do that, when we realize that so much of who we think we are and the experience that is animating in this wonky world at the moment is off the back of so many lies that we've told ourselves and so many layers of just oppression that we are carrying, that when we lift that energy, things start to open up and get a lot more brighter, more positive, and we begin to recognize the level of abundance that is actually available for us at this time. And that is our divine truth. And you might never have actually seen that in your experience before, but I invite you to be curious, because everything is changing in this world at this time, and essentially we can't stand still. So sending you lots of love, super excited to be connecting with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.